Vikings played football last Thursday night at 10 o'clock for me, 9 o'clock for you. Did you stay up? This is the first question. Did you stay up to watch the game live, or did you go to bed and finish it, Friday or Saturday?
I actually did stay up and finish it live because we had some plans on Friday, and Saturday was up in the air, and I figured Sunday it wasn't going to happen, and so I knew I had to get it in. So, as they say, I grinded the all 22 and watched some pretty sorry football in the second half.
Hey, you have to. You have to. I watched the first half. My wife actually took a video of, because this is my daughter's first football game of her life.
Yeah.
And so she was like looking, at the moving lights on the TV and stuff. And so she was standing, and my wife took a video of her, and, she kind of pans to the baby up to the TV. And in the background, you can just see me like, just head back, mouth open, sleeping like an old man. And so I woke up with the baby, to feed her, get her diapered and everything before I woke on Friday. I finished the game then. And then I did I gave it a rewatch yesterday? At some point this weekend. I don't remember which day. I think it was Sunday. It was Sunday. And kind of just collected my thoughts. I took a little bit of notes. Nothing too in-depth, I will be honest. I did not grind the all 22. I didn't think so. But I do have some thoughts. I'll let you kick us off here. First preseason action. You can go positive or negative. Just what do you think the people want to hear us talk about as it relates to that preseason game in Seattle?
I'll let you talk about Jaren Hall. I know you have a lot of things that you wanted to get into with him. And I can chime in when we get to that point. I mean, he's obviously, the headliner because he plays quarterback. But I think to me, apart from the crazy Jordan Addison no catch, that was a catch, I don't really blame him for not throwing a challenge flag in the preseason. I think I'll just kind of go sort of as like a, peanut butter spread over the by the way, that's a phrase I've stolen from Aaron Gleeman. He writes about he's a Twins beat writer for The Athletic. He uses it on his podcast. So sort of like a peanut butter spread approach to just the defensive backs. That was the position group that I was the most interested in. So it was sort of a mixed bag. It was a fruit salad. It was sort of what you would expect from a bunch of young guys in preseason in week 1. There was some good. There was a pass breakup from Jawan Williams in the end zone. I found it funny. I kind of think Jawan Williams looks like Xavier Rhodes, partly because he wears 29, but partly because he's just really tall. I don't know if you got those vibes at all.
I get that. Like, I didn't think it watching it, but now looking back, I'm like, holy cow, it does look a lot like Xavier Rhodes, doesn't it?
He's like all legs and like not a cornerback body. Like, he looks like he should play shooting guard. He's like, 6'3", 6'4". The other thing, I mean, the first thing I noticed from the jump was that the first defensive formation that we started with had 3 safeties. There was Metellus, Bynum, and Scene all started. Now, how much do you glean from that? It's the preseason. Maybe it's just, Flores saying, like, sure, we'll start with, the dime package or whatever. I don't care. Maybe he's just not thinking too much about how he wants to start. It was sort of just we're going to choose all these and we're just going to start with one. But I would like to think he's a little more calculated than that. And I do think that, having 3 safeties on the field for a decent amount on Thursday night is a little telling in that we're probably going to see Josh Metellus get a lot of run. And, assuming that Bynum and Harrison Smith start, there's probably going to be Josh Metellus thrown in there as well quite a bit. And then that would also open the door for last year's not number 1, but first round pick, Lewis Scene, who had sort of a, I guess I'd categorize it as like a all over the place game. He had some nice plays. First play of the game, tracked down a ball carrier in the flat and made a nice tackle. But I think the things that I didn't like were how high he was tackling. I am by no means a defensive tackling expert, but it's pretty clear watching him. he needs to get lower. I think I tweeted on Thursday night that he needs to get some of that Ivan Pace leverage. He just needs to get lower. And part of that's a joke because Ivan Pace is, 6 inches shorter than Lewis Cine or whatever. But
yeah.
It was pretty clear. There was a couple times I think Cine even got like run over because he wasn't low enough. So, I played 2 years of tackle football, and I'm smart enough to remember that they would always say low man wins. So, that's kind of that. And then the last thing I'll just throw in there is the cornerback play. I saw some good things from Mekhi Blackman. He did have a pass interference and also allowed a touchdown in the same play. That could have been due to safety, no help, but we don't really know because we don't know the play call. But the other thing, though, I really liked, he had really good coverage on a go ball up the right sideline where he was blanketed all over the receiver and really had no chance of a completion. So he did some good things. He got his nose in there in the run game. Jay Ward, similar. The guy I was looking forward to. He played a lot of safety. I didn't really see him playing corner at all. And then lastly, our guy Andrew Booth gave up a pretty bad touchdown to an undrafted guy out of UCLA. I think it was just like a 7 route. I don't think it was anything special. And he just kind of bit at the point of attack, if you will, and got burned to the pylon. So not what you love to see. I don't think Booth even got on the field until the second half, if I remember right. So, he's a guy, I know we were talking a little before the show, Jordan, but I don't know. I'm not out on him yet. I think I want to see what he can do in these next 2 games. But it's reaching a kind of sort of worrisome point as to how much he can contribute to the team this year. I am not in a position where I would say he's a bust, it's over, he's never going to be a contributing player in the NFL. Like somebody like Josh Metellus, who it's now his 4th year in the league, and he's now kind of finally coming into his own. Now, Metellus did some really good things special teams-wise early in his career that sort of solidified himself, but just use that sort of as an example of it's not over if Booth is not where we think he should be here in year 2, but there are some worry signs, and I think that touchdown and some other plays on Thursday kind of lead to some concerns there. So that's kind of everything. Feel free to respond to any of that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I want to point, like, I said this a lot last week in the lead up to the preseason game, and I've actually kind of said it the last 2 weeks. You have to take how defensive backs play in preseason games with a grain of salt. Especially with Flores' defense, it's every day we're hearing out of training camp, oh my gosh, this is so much different than what Donatel was doing. This is so much, it's a lot of blitzing, it's a lot of exotic looks, it's confusing, 10-year NFL veteran Kirk Cousins, who has actually been playing pretty well, and I would say his football IQ is actually one of his strong suits in terms of his game, and the fact that he is even flustered by, it's not like Jaron Hall's getting flustered by the defense and Kirk Cousins is dicing it in practice.
Yeah.
No, Cousins is also getting flustered by it. And then, we go into Seattle, nationally televised game, or at least on the NFL Network game, which I guess all of them show on the NFL Network at some point. But, I don't think Brian Flores was necessarily showing his hand. You don't want to give Tampa Bay any sort of an advantage come week 1. You want everything you're going to throw out there on the table week 1 to be a mystery and to be a complete what the heck. What was that? We weren't expecting that. That's one thing I think that benefits. The Vikings have a really tough schedule to open the season. Not to get too off topic here, but really tough schedule to open the season. The fact that they have a brand new defense with so many unknowns, while I'm going to try to spin it as a positive, it could easily be a giant negative. It could easily be all these question marks end up being bad question marks, and they end up being a really bad defense. it could also be that because it's so exotic and because it's so different than what the Vikings defense showed in 2022, Tampa Bay, not Kansas City, Philadelphia. I know we play them. San Francisco's in there in the early slate. They might be a little flustered by what we're throwing at them because there won't be a lot of tape, right, on what the Vikings defense is doing, and so Brian Flores can kind of have fun with it. And then he'll start to, teams will pick up on tendencies and teams will pick up on looks and they'll kind of regress back to the mean, if that makes any sense. So, I don't think that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say really quickly with the defense and yes, there's the learning curve for the defensive backs. I also think, it's on top of that learning curve is just maybe the added responsibilities of if you are going to be bringing 5. I think they were bringing 5 on that touchdown pass that Booth allowed. That pretty much means you're on an island as a cornerback. Yep. So you have no safety help unless they go over the middle. And so you're sort of, you're on your own. And so there is more pressure on you. Obviously, if that's the defense we're going to run, where there is a requirement of playing more man-to-man, then you got to figure it out. But that's another thing sort of on top of it of wholly changed approach. And also, by the way, you got to do more. So,
also, I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of analysts and pundits, they were excited about Andrew Booth's possibilities in this defense because one of his strengths was kind of driving on the ball, making a quick play on the ball, jumping a slant, doing those types of athletic things. And this defense kind of encourages that. Ideally, if you blitz, the quarterback's getting rid of the ball quickly to a quick slant, to a little wide receiver screen, something like that. And that's where a lot of people were saying Andrew Booth should, excel in that. And so maybe, the 5 guys that are in the second half, it's not necessarily Danielle Hunter and Marcus Davenport out there going after the quarterback. We're talking about some, I'm trying to think of a guy who I can throw under the bus, and I really just can't think of anybody, so I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus.
I mean, the only guy that I even, remember playing in the second half was Andre Carter, and the only thing I could really make out with him is how tall he was.
Yeah, he's a giant.
That's the only thing that
he is a giant.
Really was taken aback
but
by.
Let's say Andre Carter. Andre Carter is, he's a rookie. He was in the military, so he's not necessarily an NFL body right now. So he's not really getting to the quarterback the same way that Danielle, other guy, Marcus Davenport are going to. And so,
or even Luigi Villain.
Yes,
that guy was eating in the first half.
Even Ivan Pace Jr., who I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute. But so maybe, Andrew Booth is trying to jump that route because he's being told, hey, jump that route. I will say, you kind of mentioned that you're not out on him. I'm not out on him by any means. But I am, I think I said a few weeks ago, the panic meter might be at yellow. Or something like that. It might be tilting up a little bit. And it's not really a panic meter as much as it's, it's the same feeling I have with Lewis Cine, where it's you guys were a first-round pick and a second-round pick, and you just can't get past backup special teamo roles. Yeah. And granted, they both got hurt last year, so they lost a lot of their rookie seasons. But, you would like to see them take these jobs, and you see a Caleb Evans, and you see the kid at Blackman. Yeah, thank you. You see Blackman, they're kind of going out there and they're taking jobs and they're walking their way into starting lineups, and they're walking their way into not even starting lineups, but reps with the ones. And I mean, hell, Ivan Pace is a UDFA from this year's class. He's a very, very small linebacker, and he is impressing so much that he's getting a lot of run with the ones at this point. Mm-hmm. And maybe some of that is Asamoah or Asamoah, whatever the pronunciation is. Maybe some of that is, he's dealing with a sickness, or he's dealing with a little injury, or whatever the case is. But still, Ivan Pace has kind of skyrocketed up the depth chart. We're just not seeing that out of last year's first 2 picks. And I think that's concerning. And again, as a guy who, does have Notre Dame fandom in his blood, the fact that Kyle Hamilton was right there, available for picking, is kind of frustrating. You know, we could have a really good piece on this defense, and we could be looking at this defense as Harrison Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Byron Murphy, and then, you know, Daniil Hunter, and we could be like, okay, we've got some pieces there, and instead it's kind of Harrison Smith and Byron Murphy and Daniil Hunter, and we're just missing a piece, and that's kind of frustrating to see. Speaking of guys that, you know, I tried not to use the word bust in that you know, conversation. I am seeing some slander on Jaren Hall on X, the app formerly known as Twitter. And I have to put a quick stop to it. I'm going to go through very quickly some notable fifth-round picks for the Vikings over the last decade. And
this is only the last decade.
Yeah, since 2013.
Okay.
I'm not going to go through every one. Stephon Diggs was a fifth-round pick, just for, you know, Stephon Diggs is on this list, but I'm not going to point him out. Okay. We know what he became. Jeff Locke was a fifth-round pick. I don't think he's in the league. He was a punter. David Yankee, offensive lineman, was a fifth-round pick. Don't believe he's in the league. Michael Pruitt, for anybody that does the, you know, Immaculate Good Ion or the Immaculate Good NFL edition, Michael Pruitt did play for the Vikings and the Titans. Fun fact there. He's a nice little, you know, less than 1% answer for that. Michael Pruitt was actually the Stephon Diggs draft. Kentrell Brothers was a fifth-round pick. Danny Isadora. This is one that I actually think was kind of a success. Tyler Conklin, now a New York Jet. He's actually been a productive tight end in the league. Cam Smith was a fifth-round pick. And then we get into like KJ Osborne and Harrison Hand in 2020, where we kind of know what those guys are. Harrison Hand isn't really much of anything. KJ Osborne is a solid number 3 receiver in the NFL. So you look at these names, and I said I wasn't going to go through like all of them, and I basically went through, I have to go to 2021. Emil Smith-Marset was a fifth-round pick, and everybody loved him, and then we got rid of him, and then he fumbled the game to us because he went to Chicago, and I think, who was it that just took the ball out of his hands in that game?
Cam Dantzler.
Was it Dantzler? Yeah, Cam Dantzler just took the ball from him and said, this is mine, and we won the game because of it, and it was amazing. Thank you, Emil Smith-Marset, winning us Vikings games even after
Super
you
Bowl
won the Vikings.
champion Emil Smith-Marset, by the way.
Really?
He ended up on the Chiefs practice squad, I believe.
Wow.
And he might have even got in a game at some point. Anyway,
that's at least his
trivia. His Wikipedia page at least says he's a Super Bowl champion, and so
no, that's a serious piece of trivia that could win you something someday. I mean, like, I'm gonna keep that tucked away. But basically, the point I'm making here is fifth round picks don't always work out. And now here's to my theory. I have changed my mind about Jaren Hall. Jaren Hall will never be the Vikings starting quarterback unless there's an injury. Jaren Hall was not the Kirk Cousins replacement. Jaren Hall was the Nick Mullins replacement. That's my theory. And I'm going to point to a team also in the NFC that did a similar thing to what the Vikings have done this season. The Carolina Panthers took Matt Corral in like the 4th or 5th round last season. And everybody was like, oh, what if he could be the QB of the future? What are they going to do at quarterback in the future? Maybe Matt Corral could be a guy for them. Maybe he could contribute. No, he's not going to. He's a backup quarterback at best, right? And so he is taking preseason snaps. They get Bryce Young. I think the Vikings, I don't know what their plan is with Kirk Cousins post 2023, but let's say their plan is trade up to 12 and draft like Quinn Ewers or something like that. You know, they draft the guy of the future. That guy becomes the guy, our equivalent of Bryce Young, and Jaren Hall is just a cheapo Nick Mullins that's playing for 3 more years on a 5th round pick salary rather than the vet minimum or whatever it is that Nick Mullins is being paid. So I think it's just a way to save some money, get a guy in the building that can potentially be a backup for the years to come, so that way we don't have to pay the backup so much money. That is now walking in my head. That's a really long way to go and a lot of speculation about a 5th round quarterback, but he also is playing behind, I mean, basically, you know, I'm trying, like, he's playing behind, you know, bad offensive
not
line.
gonna make
Let's
the
just
roster.
call it what it is. Yeah. Like bad offensive line play. He's running for his life. I thought he impressed me with what he said in his post-game interview, talking about how, he was just trying to get rid of the ball, not take a negative play. Throwing the ball away isn't really exciting, but sometimes you have to do that. Better throw the ball away than try and extend the play for too long and take a sack and waste 30 seconds of the game clock. I would like to see him take some of the true second string reps to start off the Tennessee game, which we'll talk about at the end. But I don't think he will. I think Nick Mullins is kind of certified number 2 guy, and I think Jaron Hall is going to spend this season as the emergency quarterback, and we're just going to let him marinate for a season. And then next training camp, he'll kind of step up to be the backup, and either Kirk will be the guy because he's gotten an extension, or there will be a new Vikings quarterback in the building that will be taking the first team reps because he'll obviously be the starter. And so that's my theory. That's what I'm taking.
What did the Vikings do last preseason with their quarterbacks? Did they have Mannion start all of the games, or did they switch off with Mond?
I feel like they had Mond stout one, but don't hold me to that. Last year had so many crazy moments in it, it is hard to remember the preseason.
Yeah, and you can't find stats on these games anywhere. I don't know, even after the Seahawks game, I tried to find the game on Pro Football Reference. It's not there.
Yeah.
So, you can obviously get the stats on ESPN box scores and stuff, but to actually look at, more in-depth stats snap counts and pressures and things like that, you're not going to find them. So anyway, I think that's an interesting theory. It's quite reasonable considering, 5th round pick. You don't expect a 5th round pick to be your franchise quarterback. And if you do expect a 5th round pick to be your franchise quarterback, you're probably thinking a little bit erroneously. Yeah, the only thing really that I could glean apart from just poor offensive line play and maybe some jittery feet from Jaron Hall, he was out of the pocket really quick if there was any pressure. And I didn't study the pockets. I didn't see if there was a step-up lane or anything like that well enough, but it kind of felt like the first thing he did when he faced pressure is he rolled out. And some of that is fine. Don't create a negative play. Just take a net nothing and start over. But you live to fight another down. But when it's 3 of those in a row, it's hard to move the ball. The one thing really though that I gleaned was that he needs to go through his progressions quicker. And he even said that after the game, which I was very proud of, that I had the same takeaway that he did. I took that note, in the 4th quarter or whatever, and then he gets up to the mic after the game, and it's the 3rd thing he says. Is just that those 2 sacks that he took back to back, yes, it was a quick kind of enclosure of the pocket, but it was clear his eyes had not moved from one side of the field to the other. He was still locked in on the first or the second receiver. And so without the ability to scan the field quicker, he was, in a heap of trouble, literally. So there's a lot that he can work on. His coaches have not, seemed too worried or anything like that. I as well, and maybe we can transition a little bit to the Tennessee stuff unless you have more on the preseason game, but I as well would like to see him get some run with our second string guys, or even if any first string guys play again against their first or second string guys. Now, joint practices are where a lot of the real work gets done. So what he is able to do on Wednesday and Thursday of this week might even be more telling than what happens on Saturday night. But either way, you'd like to see him get more reps there. Because I agree. I think that the idea of him surpassing, if you will, Nick Mullins as the backup is maybe the best option here.
Yeah, I think that that's the hope, I guess, is that. I do just quickly, and I don't know if you, you can, say here, if you agree, or you can slam your shoe on the table a couple times if you disagree, but it is really difficult to gauge this Ivan Pace thing for me because everything in my soul tells me we have something special. Like there is some sort of electricity that he is bringing just like how he plays, what the staff is thinking of using him in certain packages. It seems like there is this kind of buzz. I just hit my glass table with my ring. I hope I didn't just shadow it, but there's this buzz around Ivan Pace Jr. and I was impressed. I didn't think he played bad. I don't know if I said this on the show last week or if I thought it after the fact. Everyone's talking about how it's Asamoah and it's Pace fighting for that number 2 linebacker spot, and I don't quite understand why Jordan Hicks is just cemented as the one. Again, did we not watch the Giants? Did we not watch any football last season? Basically, yeah. Did we not watch this Vikings defense and cool, Jordan Hicks can stop the run. Have you noticed it's kind of a passing league nowadays, and most teams are trying to throw the ball more? Like, I would love to see them maybe get some packages where it's the 2 young, fast guys on the field more than it is the old man and a fast guy. But Ivan Pace, what he's gonna do, I think we might be looking at like 6 or 7 sacks for this kid as a rookie, just on blitzes, like just on schemed up blitzes where he has this knack for just getting past the line, whether it's using pass rush moves or whether it's, and this is going to sound dumb, but like, is he just small enough that linemen forget about him almost? And I don't know if you saw, there was a clip that made the rounds on the app formerly known as Twitter. He was like blowing 6'5" lineman up, dude. He was like coming up, and he was hitting. I mean, he was hitting. Like, and so it was exciting to see for me. That's kind of my final thoughts on this preseason game. Is just, and again, mate. Look, I live in Cincinnati. I am a 30-minute drive from where he played college football his senior season. So maybe there's some homer bias here. It feels like the buzz and the electricity is legitimate, and I liked what I saw against Seattle. I hope he gets more reps against Tennessee, and I hope he does the same exact thing in that game. And I want to see him sack Will Levis. That's what I want. That's what I need in my soul, is I need to see him blow Will Levis up. And just, I mean, I'm not talking help the guy or anything, but, you know, just a hit, you know, just football, right?
Do you have a little bit of vitriol for Will Levis because of the Kentucky connection and how close Cincinnati is to Kentucky? Is there a little bit of a rivalry there?
I had my draft night was so weird. It was, oh my God, Will Levis is there, don't take him, followed up by, hey, Will Levis is still there, should we trade up and take him? Followed by, on the drive home, me going, oh my God, thank God we didn't take Will Levis. I forgot how much I like. He's just weird. He's just kind of odd, and he'll end up being a Hall of Famer, and I'll eat these worlds for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But it's just kind of this, like, I just want to see Ivan Pace be good and Will Levis be bad to validate my own opinions pre-draft, and so him sacking him would be like the ultimate, we got the right guy, even though one was undrafted and one was a top of the second round pick.
I am excited to see Will Levis this weekend. You know, depending on what sort of what kind of guy he is when it comes to, you know, creating grudges and putting monkeys on his back and chips on his shoulder and whatever to kind of motivate himself, he could look at the whole Vikings situation as, you know, they passed up on me, because obviously every team passed up on him because he was drafted in the second round, but the Vikings were one of the teams that drafted a quarterback and potentially need a quarterback in the short term.
And there was legitimate buzz that we were gonna. It's not like this is Shaquille O'Neal making up stories to get himself pissed off before NBA games. This is like, we made him hold a football. You remember that story? The Vikings made Will Levis hold a football. What does it mean? And like, that was a whole thing in the draft process. Like, we talked to him. I think that there was maybe some interest there, but I think once he put that mayonnaise in his coffee, it all went out the window, and they said, give us Jordan Addison. He's going to be better than Justin Jefferson. You know? Like, that, and that's, I think, I don't know. I'm happy with what the decision we made.
Yeah. I got no problem. I got no problem with it right now. I mean, it remains to be seen how good Will Levis will become. But back to the Ivan Pace question. It is clear that it's not just your Cincinnati bias, at least considering the buzz, because even in the weeks leading up to this preseason game, the media were asking coaches about Ivan Pace Jr. They were not asking the coaches about Jay Ward or Mekhi Blackman so much. There might have been a few questions here or there about those guys, but the amount of intrigue and interest about an undrafted free agent who's about as tall as me and, played at a non-power school, that was the talking point. Apart from Jordan Addison, obviously, he was the talking point of camp and continues to be the talking point of camp. I mean, Brian Flores was asked about him again yesterday. There's a level of intrigue with this guy, and it's not just because he is a freak athlete insofar as using his size and his lack of height to his advantage, and how ferocious he is on defense and how fearless he is on defense, but also the fact that, as Flores called it and many coaches call it, he got to wear the green dot, meaning he was the play caller on defense. He was the middle linebacker calling out coverages. If you noticed it all, pre-snap, he would put his arms up if he was changing a coverage or something. That's a lot of responsibility on anybody. It's a lot of responsibility, especially on a 22-year-old rookie who didn't get drafted, and it's just impressive, and it shows a level of trust already that they're placing in him, and it's these things that he relishes and that he wants. He wants to have the green dot. He wants to be in the middle of that defense, and so. The last maybe two things I'll say on this really quickly. If he can continue to develop the IQ that it's clear that he already has, and not make boneheaded plays like throw somebody out of bounds, that was not that big of a deal in my book. I mean, finishing a tackle, but you got to just be smarter about that. The 15-yard penalty, it's a preseason game. I'm not too worried about it. But even on the kickoff or later in the game, he kind of got in a little bit of a pissing match with one of the guys on the Seahawks. Things like that where it's like, okay, I love your fight. I love your drive. You also have to be smart. And so it's clear he's got like a fire inside of him, which you love. And as long as he channels that into the right things, I think he's going to be a great player. The other thing that I will say, this is not about Pace, this is more just about Flores, is that I don't see him as a guy who's just going to play veterans because of their veteranness. I mean, the other day one of the quotes that he stole from Mike Tomlin, he steals many of them, as he says, was something along the lines of like, I don't care who comes up with the good ideas, I just like good ideas. And so he even joked, he's like, hey, if any of you reporters have any good blitz packages, I'm all ears. And so I don't see him as a rigid guy who's going to be out here saying like, well, Jordan Hicks was the starter and they brought him back, and so we're going to start him. I think if by week 2 it's clear that Ivan Pace and Brian Asamoah are the two guys you roll out there, I think you roll them out there. So, I don't think either of us are defensive geniuses enough to know exactly what we saw from Pace on Thursday, but I think there's a lot to like, and I think there is a lot of reason to be optimistic and like reasonably optimistic about this guy's future and frankly present.